It's a chilly morning here in May, and I have a piece of maple I've been looking at for about almost the last year. Came off of a neighbor's tree, and I come out and look at it every once in a while. Try to decide what I'm going to do with it. It's an odd shape. I cut some other pieces off I've already made stuff out of. But I can't put it off any longer. I think there's something in here. To be honest with you, I'm not entirely sure what it is yet. But I know one thing for sure. I have to get this bark off of here. That's something I don't want. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to grab a small hatchet and take the bark off and see what it looks like. See if I can get some more inspiration as to what I do with it. I've had thoughts of maybe cutting it in half, using this part for something, using this for something. You know, I could make a nice bowl here, but I'd kind of like to think I could maybe make a tray or something out of it. I have some serious cracking going here, of course, with these big nuts, and I knew I would. This is right out of the center of the crotch of a tree, and so I had branches coming out here, a big one coming out here, there was one coming up this way, there was one coming off over here. So anyway, I'm gonna get this bark off and then see what it looks like, see if I can gain some inspiration. I wanted to show this maple bowl that I started on. I had a piece of maple, and I just started in on it didn't really know what it was going to turn out. I mean, I wanted to make a bowl, but it's probably the first time ever that I haven't actually planned what I was going to make. So I just kind of show you what I've got now and how I got there. This is the bowl, and what I did is I started out, took my chainsaw and cut about, I don't know, I just cut this part off flat because I couldn't get it mounted, and I knew I'm going to have a flat base anyway. So you start chopping away at it, and I just cut this off. And then I went at the inside of all of this. I just I started out with my chainsaw grinder, and again, this is it's unplugged, but there's a paddle switch, and the Chicago Electric grinder from Harbor Freight, it's like $20 on sale, and it's an amazing deal. What I like about it, paddle switch for this cutter also comes from Harbor Freight, and is pretty reasonable. The handle on this also will screw on the top, which is really handy because for operation and control, if you have a handle up here, well, how do you do that? It's just a bad angle if you screw the handle in here. So the way I do this is I rest my hand with gloves on, obviously, and face mask and hearing protection, and I sort of rest my hand on the bowl somewhere, and then I start, and I tilt this at an angle, and I just start shaving. And I don't know if you can see that in the angle. I just lay this down and I just start shaving with it. But I keep this hand solidly on whatever my surface is. And in doing that, I try not to take off any more material than necessary. Just gently shaving it. And what will happen is it tends to grab and then pull. So you want to, if I have my hand resting, this back hand here, resting on something, I can kind of wedge it that way, and I'm pulling back against my hand, as I'm sweeping across. And you have to change your angle constantly, go around and around, and you want to get the best angle you can while you're using one of these. Like I tell you, I don't like this tool, but it really does remove the most material in the fastest manner. Now, after using that, I used this grinder. I have the two of them. This is actually a heavier duty grinder, I think, but it does not have the paddle switch. It has this switch. The reason, one of the main reasons you don't want this type of a switch when using this attachment is they can get sawdust built up in there to where you can't actually turn it off. These get packed with sawdust, the whole thing get packed with sawdust, and I've had this one jam on before just using this abrasive head here. So then after I did that, I went along and you go over everything with this, and it leaves things pretty rough, but it can actually smooth out because the chainsaw will really cut deep gouges. And I mean, parts of it will be smooth, but it'll be very uneven. It could be 1/4 of an inch difference in depth. So you go over with this, and that smooths things out and gets them more uniform. Then I'll follow up with flap discs, and there's a 40 grit and a 120. And the 40, then when you run this over the top, as you start spinning in here, you can see where the deep holes are, and then you can work that down. So now, where I am now, after I did all of that, I took this grinder and went all over the outside. I took my chainsaw and I cut off the protrusions and the corners and anything that was big bulk, and then went around with this and ground all of this down just to kind of get a rough shape. Now what I have is it's ununiform, and right now this is about a 1/2 inch thicker on this edge than it is on this edge. That's out of spec as far as I'm concerned. I don't really need this to be perfect, but I do want it to be at least sort of flat as it sits there. I don't really care about how level the top is. But next thing to do for me is I'm going to take it out. It's still really heavy because it's quite thick. I'm going to take this out, and I'm going to use my power hand plane, and I'm going to plane this bottom off until I'm going to take about a 1/2 inch off of this side. But I'm going to watch my height so that I can get it. I'll sort of mark it around the edge, you know, use a height gauge and go around and mark this. Give me an idea of where I'm going to plane this down to, and then I'm going to sight it so that I get it flat. Having that flat, then I can go back and work on my inside depth, because I think I can go another 1/2 inch deeper on the bowl, and so that'll be the next thing to do. I'll take this, it'll be down to about here, but then I got to see what's going on with this. I'm probably going to want to remove this bark, either all of it or most of it, but I don't want to get into a thin situation here because I don't know what's going to happen as I start cutting down in here. I also have this knot, which I'm not sure where that one's going. I have a feeling, I don't really know, it may be going here at an angle, or it could be going over here. It kind of looks like it's angled this way. So I don't know what's going to happen as I cut down here, if this is going to open up a new problem. We'll see. I'm not too concerned. I've got cracks here. I've got, you know, a crack here, cracks here. crack here, you know, not there. Not really too worried about it. I'm going to attack it and see where it leads me, which I've done already. I cut this freehand, and you know, it's going to be kind of interesting. If it goes a little deeper, I think that would be nice. I don't know what this bowl will be used for yet. I haven't, you know, I'm going to have to kind of see how it looks and how I want to end up finishing it. And whether I fill these cracks or I don't fill these cracks, we'll see. I have a feeling I might. But this bowl is going to be a little different. It's a little rustic. Anyway, that's the progress right now. As you can see, the bottom has been planed. I marked off the perimeter of what I wanted, and this is currently now 4 inches thick. So I used my power plane, took it outside to keep the mess and the shavings out there, and planed this down, and it's within a 1/16 of an inch. It's fine, you know, from what I want right now. I have this little spot here. Don't know what that's going to amount to. I think maybe I'm going to end up with some bark in here. That's probably okay. Got some cracks. That's fine. I kind of expected that with this piece. And here's what I'm doing for my depth. I want to take, it's about 3 inches deep right now, so I want to leave like maybe a 1/2 inch bottom. I've set a drill bit down to a depth of 9/16 from the base. Used my drill press to drill a series of holes. I've outlined my bottom. I think you can see that where I've drawn the line. That's where the bottom comes all the way around. I've drilled a series of holes down to depth. That makes it much easier when I take a grinder in here to just quickly knock it down until, you know, I get to the bottom of these holes. And obviously with a drill bit, one nice thing is they have a taper at the bottom. So, you know, the holes actually, as you go down that last 1/8 of an inch, 3/32 or so, the hole starts getting smaller. So you can actually have a lot of control. Ideally, when I grind it down, I'd like to be able to just see the tips of most of these screws, and then I'll finish that off with another grinder with less grit, and then I can shape the whole thing. That's as good as I can get using that chainsaw grinding tool. You can see the holes, just the tips of the bits. That one's not quite as deep. I had, of course, to dig into the sides to get down there. So I think if you can see that, I'm going to zoom in a little, might help, I'm not sure. So now I'm going to go at it with the grinding wheel, and do a final shaping and knock off, like there's a huge corner here, trying to smooth everything out and go back down to where I want to get. So now, yeah, it's looking like it's where I want it to be. Now I've used this grinding wheel now to do the final shaping, and when doing this I still had evidence of all of my holes in the bottom. So what you want to do is you want to work it down from the sides first. You've got an outer row of holes that you care the most about. So as you're grinding, you want to grind to those and take out those outer row of holes. You don't want to mess with the bottom until you get the sides reprofiled properly. So you go around, grind down, grind down, grind down. You get all of this shaped right, and then the last thing you do is you go down here in the bottom. Now you can see I've probably got as much as 1/8 of an inch of a rise down in here. Next thing for me to do is to take a flap wheel, probably a 40 grit flap wheel, and see what I can do, and see if I can knock off some of this stuff, see where the high points are, and smooth that out a bit. I'm done with the flap disc, a 40 grit flap disc, and you can still see there's, maybe you can, that there's sanding marks, but I think one thing is nice is you can see a lot of character coming out of this piece of maple, and it's going to be fun once I'm done and put some finish on it. I'm really satisfied with the inside for now. It needs aggressive sanding with a power, maybe a power hand sander, and I'll have to see what I can do. There's some, it's just really hard to get in the corners of the flap disc, so I know I have a lot of work along the back here, some of these edges. But, so that's just, at some point I need to start sanding. But I need to start refining the outside edge of this bowl. And to do that, I have material to remove as much as, there's a good inch I want to take off on this corner, maybe an inch and a half on this corner, as I can feel my way around. This isn't bad in here. Here again, all the way along this edge, I can probably take a good inch and a quarter off, inch and a half off right here. And into here, I can feel I probably won't take more than a ½ inch off. See what happens when I clean this up. This is still almost 3/4 to an inch thick in here, and I don't know how much I'll do with that. Take that a little thinner, maybe a quarter inch. So I need to work this down, and I'm going to work on the outside of this down. I don't want to, because the one tool I have a hard time controlling is that chainsaw cutter again. But I've done this with this already, but it's really kind of a slow go, just kind of grinding away. Plus, it creates so much sawdust. If there's one good thing about that chainsaw wheel, is that it takes shavings off. So the shavings, they just kind of go out and go down on the ground. They don't go up in the air all over everywhere. So I'll probably try and do that very gingerly, take as much as I can with that very carefully off of, and get the bulk off, and then I'll go ahead and do a finish grinding with this wheel, and start sanding on the inside. And once I get the next phase, really is to get this outside, I think, sort of in the thickness that I want. I've used my chainsaw cutter on the angle grinder to refine this entire outside, and it feels like it's anywhere from 3/8 to probably 3/4, maybe mostly a ½ inch. I tried to get it down to about a ½ inch everywhere. I wanted to give you an idea of how I use this chainsaw cutter. By the way, one note on this tool: I don't see how you can do power grinding without having an air compressor, because as you can see, they get plugged up. I've had to stop several times on the inside inside of the bowl and on the outside of the bowl, just to clean the tool. At one point, I noticed I was having trouble pushing down the paddle switch. I got so many shavings underneath here that needed to be cleaned out. You can see the vents get plugged, so you got to stop and blow them out quite frequently. But when I'm working this outside, and I don't know if you can tell, I don't use the chainsaw cutter like this. I actually lay it down and cut with this forward edge, and I shave. So you can see my hands, I shave, and that means that if it grabs, well, it just pulls right off the work. And I can take about, oh, maybe, you know, a 1/16 to an 1/8 of an inch, maybe even a little more than that on a pass, but I try not to take too much, and I just go back and forth, shave it down, you know, hold the grinder off to the side while I reach in with my hand and feel. And with gloves on, that can get a little tricky, but you're only trying to get close. You just don't want to get too thin or do anything crazy. You know, if you have too much of an angle on this, it will dig in, and you could dig right through to the center of the bowl so fast with this. So you don't want to do that. Keep it laying down. If it grabs, it takes off, but it's actually quite controllable here. And what I would do is really just work a spot without moving my feet. I would set up, turn this on, and kind of just grind, shave as I twist. So I would end up with a flat spot across here. And then I would move my body and take down the next area. That way I'm just twisting my body. The saw is against my side and against my chest as I'm holding it up here. And just move back and forth like that as I work my way around. If I needed to, I'd move my jaw horse. By the way, the jaw horse, one jaw would go inside the bowl here, and the other jaw clamped outside here, so that would hold it vertically at about an angle. You know, if I show you, it would hold it at an angle. I don't know if you can see that. Anyway, would hold it at an angle up sort of vertically for me to work. I'd work the sides down, would hold it up so I could work on this edge, and then work all the way around, reclamp it, and do this whole side. Alright, at this point I am now ready to take this tool and grind the outside to get my thickness down more to where I want it. So that's the next thing. I am done grinding the outside of the bowl. I've used this wheel and then finished off with a 40 grit flap disc, and I'm pretty pleased with how smooth it is. Obviously I need to attack it now with some more sanding. I'm pretty pleased with the outside shape. I think I might want to knock this corner back a little bit, maybe here, refine this edge a little more, but that is something I do once I get into it and do finish sanding. So the next step is to go at this, I think, I'll use my belt sander to maybe kind of refine this upper lip the way I want to see it, and then work my way down using my hand palm sander and some coarse sandpaper to reshape and get all this. I want to get the bottom flat. Like I said, it's off maybe a 1/16 of an inch or something like that. That's not a big deal. So I want to get that perfectly flat, and then start working on the inside, sanding, and possibly use a card scraper, you know, to see I've got some deep grinding marks in there, and might be difficult to sand them all out, so card scraper might work. Always comes one of those times when I have to sharpen my card scraper. I always look forward to sharpening this one because it's just so many edges, you know, and you got to like knock them all down when you do that. But start over. But I might get some life out of this yet. And anyway, I'll I'm going to see where that takes me, and I'll show you. I have this bowl sanded pretty well all the way to the outside and the inside with some 60 grit with my my palm sander, and I'm to the point now where I want to do is I've decided to fill these cracks, and I thought I would show you how I do that if you've never done it before. Whether you fill cracks or not depends on what you want to use the bowl for. I like to fill them because I think having a bowl that's sealed up has some uses in the kitchen for serving and things like that, but if you don't, well, then you really can't, because you can never get the food out of the cracks. So I'm going to fill the cracks. So what I have is I've collected some sawdust, and I'm going to take this crack here, and I'll show you what I'm going to do to fill it. So what I'm going to use is this CA glue, and it's very this is the thin, it's very thin. What I want to do first is I actually want to wet this surface around this with the CA glue, and the reason is I want to seal it so that the CA glue that I put on for this doesn't have a chance to soak in here, because it takes a lot of sanding to remove the CA glue if you really allow it to penetrate. So what I'm going to do is just apply some to a rag, to a little towel, wipe it on there. The intent of just sealing that surface. That's all I'm really trying to do right now. Just seal that surface very thinly, so it'll be much easier to sand off. Now it's dry already. I'm going to put a little bit of sawdust in there, work that in. Sometimes you have to do this several times. This crack also, goes all the way through, so I'll have to do it on the outside. I'm going to sort of sweep that excess off right now, and we'll start with that. I'm just going to put a little CA glue on there. Now I'm going to kind of wipe the excess off the outside edges, and that's what it takes. And I'm going to do all of these this way. This one's already set up. Feels pretty good. What I'll do is after I go over this, and well, I may have to come back and redo a few more, but that's the essence of it. That's how you fill it, and I have a whole bunch of these to fill on this, so you can kind of see, and actually you can see how the CA glue actually went clear through there. Okay, so I have some more to do. I finally have this bowl sanded down the way I like it. All of the cracks on the inside are filled, and the majority of them on the outside are filled. I'm not too concerned about that on the outside. And I am ready to put on a finish coat. It feels nice. I've been over it with 220 grit. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use, I have my drying rack ready. This is just a piece of cardboard with some shingle nails in it. Works great. I put that down and then just set your drying piece on it. And it works with varnish. And the oils, what I'm going to be using today is Mahoney's Pure Walnut Oil. And kind of looking forward to finishing this. This bowl wasn't sure, you know, what I was going to do with it for about a year. As I watched it dry, it was kind of an odd shape, and I considered cutting it up. And anyway, I'm kind of pleased with where it is right now. So let's put some finish on. I thought I'd kind of show you what that looks like as it goes on, because that's always kind of fun. Obviously I want to put on a liberal amount, and I put some rubber gloves on. It's walnut oil, so there's nothing toxic about it. To me, I don't have a nut allergy or anything. And I'm not sure once it's cured if how dangerous it would be for people putting food in it if they had nut allergies, because once it's cured, it hardens. The walnut oil is going to soak in, and you know, it takes a while. It might take over a week to really cure, maybe even longer than that to fully cure. After about a week, I will put some wax, beeswax. I have another one of the Mahoney's products. They make it's a beeswax, carnauba wax, and walnut oil mix. And that's really nice, because if you have any little cracks or holes that need to be sealed up, the wax will go in those holes and seal them up really nicely once it dries. So that's what the inside looks like. This maple is really got a lot of pretty coloring to it, and I like that. Take some of this excess in here. I'll probably be adding more anyway. Well, I won't make you watch this whole thing. I put an awful lot of oil on it. It just kept soaking it up. It's a little shiny right now because it's not really fully dry. And once it soaks in, about maybe an hour from now, I'm going to come out and wipe it down with a rag, and that'll take off any of the excess oil. And then that should do it. And we'll be able to see. It'll have a nice sheen to it. At least eventually, when I get it waxed, it will. It'll be a very flat, like a semi-gloss, but a satin finish almost. Should look pretty good. I do like the coloring of that maple. Okay, thank you. This is about maybe 2 hours after I put the coat of walnut oil on, and sort of what it looks like now that it's soaked in a little bit. After a week or so, I'll put some wax on this, but kind of an idea of the size. This bowl is just under 12 inches wide at its widest, and just under 17 at its widest, that direction. And this is get an idea. The coloring really came out nice in this maple. This piece of maple was going into the shredder, into the chipper, and now it's something else. I was going to show, see how deep this is, shall we? It's 3.5 inches deep, looks like. and overall it's about 4 inches high. Filled all the cracks with CA. They came out nice. I think I'm pleased with that.